Caleb Sterling flicked the $100 bill onto the carpet and smiled like he had just invented cruelty. "Pick it up," he said. The whole private dining room went quiet. The two investors at his table stopped moving. The woman beside him lowered her glass. Even the violin music from the main room seemed to die before it reached the velvet rope around table 1. Rowan Bennett stood frozen with a silver tray pressed against her hip. Her knees still stung from where she had hit the service cart after Caleb shoved her. A streak of saffron sauce stained the sleeve of his black tuxedo. It was barely the size of a coin. But he looked at her as if she had set fire to his empire. "I said pick it up." His voice was not loud now. That made it worse. Soft. Sharp. Certain. Rowan looked at the bill on the floor, then at Caleb's polished shoes, then at the faces around the table, all of them waiting to see what an invisible woman would do when a rich man decided to make her small. Jean-Luc, the manager, rushed in, breathing hard. "Mr. Sterling, please. She is new. She did not mean." "Then she can learn." Caleb never took his eyes off Rowan. "On your knees, or you're fired." Rowan slowly bent down, and as her fingers moved toward the money, Caleb nudged it away with the toe of his shoe. "Good," he said with a cruel little laugh. "Now you look honest." What none of them saw was the change in Rowan's face. Not fear, not shame, recognition. Because in that moment, while the richest man in the room enjoyed watching her crawl, Rowan finally heard the one sentence she had come for. She reached for the bill. And Caleb leaned toward the investors and said, "You don't save weak assets, you remove them, like Trial B." Rowan's heart slammed against her ribs. Trial B. After 7 years of silence, the ghost had just spoken. She closed her hand around the bill and rose to her feet. Caleb thought he had broken her. He had no idea he had just signed his own ending. Rowan lowered her eyes and played the part perfectly. "I'm sorry, sir." Her voice shook just enough, not too much. Just enough to satisfy him. Caleb leaned back in his chair, pleased with himself now that the room belonged to him again. He took his wine glass from the table and swirled it once, slow and careless. "That," he said to the investors, "is the problem with people who are handed chances they did not earn. No discipline, no precision, no value." The blonde woman beside him smiled like this was charming. One of the investors did not. He looked at Rowan, then at the bill still crushed in her hand, and cleared his throat. "Caleb," the older man said quietly, "perhaps we should continue the valuation discussion." "We are," Caleb replied. "This is valuation. Every room tells you what matters. Every person tells you what they're worth." Rowan kept her face blank. Inside, her pulse was racing. Trial B. He had said it like it meant nothing, like it was a line item, like the dead were numbers. She knew better. 7 years earlier, her father had written those same 2 words in the final pages of a notebook she had pulled from the wreckage of his car. Trial B. Then, a warning beneath it. "If anything happens to me, Sterling knows." She had stared at those words so many nights they lived behind her eyes now. But words in a notebook were grief, suspicion, smoke, not proof. This was proof starting to breathe. Jean-Luc grabbed Rowan by the wrist and forced a tight smile at the table. "Please forgive the interruption. She's done here." Caleb glanced at Rowan one more time, bored already. "Yes, she is." The investors returned to their menus, eager to pretend none of this had happened. That was how power survived. Not only through cruelty, but through witnesses who wanted their dessert more than the truth. Jean-Luc dragged Rowan back toward the service corridor. The moment they passed through the swinging doors, his face twisted. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped. "Do you understand who that is?" Quote, Rowan pulled her wrist free, perfectly. "You spilled on Caleb Sterling. It was a spoon of sauce. It was the wrong man." He jabbed a finger toward the dining room. "That table keeps this place alive. Men like him buy restaurants for fun. They erase people for sport." Rowan looked back through the small, round window in the kitchen door. Caleb was laughing again, already retelling the scene like a dinner story. One hand held the wine glass. The other moved as he talked. "Calm, loose, untouchable. Not tonight," she said under her breath. Jean-Luc frowned. "What?" "Nothing." A line cook shoved past them with plated sea bass. Another server whispered, "Is she fired?" Like Rowan was already gone. The kitchen kept moving. Pans clanged. Butter hissed. Orders were shouted. The world never stopped for humiliation. It just made room for it and kept going. Jean-Luc held out his hand. "Your apron." Rowan stared at him. "Now! Now!" She untied the apron and gave it to him. Her fingers brushed the inside seam where the tiny button camera was hidden. Still there, still warm. "Good." Jean-Luc snatched the apron away. "Take your things and leave through the alley, and pray he forgets your face." Rowan almost laughed at that. Forget her face? That was the reason men like Caleb Sterling survived as long as they did. They never saw faces below their own level. They saw uniforms, functions, obstacles, disposable pieces. He would remember the stain on his sleeve long before he remembered the woman who caused it. She walked to the locker room, shut the door, and reached into the lining of her coat. Her phone was there, screen dark. She pressed it awake and checked the live audio feed. The recording bar was still moving. Everything from the table was captured. Not enough to destroy him yet, but enough to open a door. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. Did he say it? Rowan typed with steady thumbs. Yes. Trial B confirmed. A reply came almost instantly. Then, "Don't push too fast. Make him feel safe." Rowan stared at the message for a moment. That was always the hard part. Waiting after the wound opened. Letting the bleeding continue until it could not be hidden. She tucked the phone away and left through the rear exit. Rain hit her at once. Cold. Hard. Merciless. The alley behind Laronnerie smelled like wet brick, grease, and rotting cardboard. A dumpster lid slammed somewhere in the dark. Traffic hissed in the distance. Seattle glowed in broken pieces beyond the back lot. All glass and money and people pretending not to see each other. A second later, the kitchen door flew open behind her, and Jean-Luc threw her canvas bag out into the rain. "Do not come back," he shouted. "You are finished." The door slammed. Rowan stood alone with water running down her face and into the collar of her cheap black dress. For a few seconds, she let herself feel it. The heat in her throat. The shake in her hands. The animal sting of being forced to kneel in front of laughing strangers. Then she bent, picked up her bag, and opened it. Inside was a cracked makeup compact, 2 pens, a dead charger, and the $100 bill Caleb had made her crawl for. She unfolded it carefully. On the back, in tiny gray pressure marks almost invisible under the rain, was an impression from the check folder Caleb had signed earlier in the meal. Most people would have missed it. Rowan did not. Numbers. Partial account data. A private donor code. And one handwritten word pressed deep enough to survive. Aurelius. She smiled slowly. Not a restaurant payment. Not a charity pledge. Aurelius was a shell foundation her father had mentioned once, right before he died. He had called it the room behind the room, the place where bribes moved after they had been washed clean. Rowan slipped the bill back into her bag like it was gold. Then she lifted her face to the rain and laughed once, softly. Caleb Sterling thought tonight had been about a waitress learning her place. He was wrong. Tonight had given Rowan 2 things she had chased for 7 years. A spoken link to Trial B, and a new door into Caleb's private world. Across the street, a black sedan sat with its lights off. Rowan walked toward it. The passenger window lowered 2 inches. A distorted voice came through a speaker from inside. "Well?" Rowan opened the back door and got in without hesitation. Laptop glow lit the dark interior. Screens moved with data, camera feeds, building maps, financial records. The driver never turned around. "He said Trial B out loud," Rowan said, "and I found a live thread tied to Aurelius." Quote. The voice from the front seat went quiet for half a second. Then, "That changes everything." Rowan looked back at the restaurant, at the amber windows where Caleb was still eating, still smiling, still certain the world would keep bending around him. "It does," she said. She wiped rainwater from her mouth and her eyes turned cold. "Now we stop chasing his secret." She looked down at the crushed bill in her hand. "And start taking his life apart." By sunrise, the video was everywhere. Not the full dinner, not the hidden audio, just the cleanest, ugliest part of it. Caleb Sterling standing over a waitress. Caleb Sterling dropping money on the floor. Caleb Sterling making her kneel while the room watched. Rowan had posted it at 4:12 a.m. from 3 burner accounts and 2 overseas mirrors. By 7 o'clock, morning shows were replaying the clip in split screen beside Caleb's smiling magazine covers. By 8:15, the hashtag was trending. By 9 o'clock, Sterling Hale Pharmaceuticals had lost billions in market value. And by 9:30, Caleb Sterling was in his executive boardroom, staring at a wall of screens and realizing the internet had finally found a version of him he could not charm. "This is a waitress," he snapped. "A nobody. Why is this still growing?" No one answered right away. The boardroom on the top floor of Sterling Hale headquarters was designed to make everyone inside feel small, except him. Black glass table. City skyline. Soundproof walls. A 12-foot digital display glowing with red market numbers that kept sliding lower. His chief legal officer adjusted his glasses. "Because the footage is clear." Caleb turned on him. "Clear?" "Yes. It is a contextless clip. It is you kicking a bill away from a woman on her knees." Caleb's jaw tightened. His PR director, Jessica Wynn, clicked to the next slide on the screen. Headlines flooded the room. Biotech King, OR Corporate Bully. Sterling, CEO under fire after viral humiliation video. Boycott calls grow as former employees speak out. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Former employees? Jessica inhaled carefully. The clip opened the floodgates. We have anonymous comments coming in from manufacturing, legal, and 2 former trial coordinators. Most are vague, some are not. About what? She did not want to say it. That was obvious. About a culture of fear, she answered. Retaliation, coercion, irregularities tied to Aegis. The room went still. Aegis. That word had weight in this building. It was the jewel, the miracle valve, the product Caleb had built his empire around. Publicly, it was hope in titanium. Privately, it was the one subject every careful person in the company stepped around. Caleb leaned both hands on the table. No one knows anything about Aegis. Jessica kept her eyes on the screen. The FDA has requested clarification on archived trial data. Clarification is not an investigation. Not yet. Caleb looked around the room and saw what powerful men always fear most. Not anger. Not defiance. Distance. Tiny, frightened distance. The kind that appears when people start calculating how far they need to stand from you before the building catches fire. Then the boardroom doors opened. Elias Voss walked in without knocking. He was Sterling Hale's chief operations officer and the only man in the company old enough, rich enough, and dangerous enough to speak to Caleb without permission. Silver hair, flat eyes, no wasted movement. He closed the door behind him and placed a slim red folder on the table. "We have another problem." Caleb stared at him. "Today seems full of those." Elias slid the folder forward. "Aurelius?" For the first time that morning, Caleb's expression changed. Only slightly. Only for a second. But Jessica saw it. So did legal. So did every person in the room who understood that some names did not belong in daylight. Caleb opened the folder. Inside was a printout of transaction alerts and donor routing notices. One line had been circled. Aurelius Foundation, sub-ledger access attempt, detected. 2:14 a.m. Caleb looked up slowly. From where? Unknown external source. Masked. Short-lived. But deliberate. Was anything taken? We don't know. Caleb closed the folder. Now the room felt different. The waitress story was no longer the fire. It was smoke from a fire somewhere deeper. Jessica broke the silence. Then we need to get ahead of everything. Not just the viral clip. We need a counter-image. Fast. Public remorse. A statement. Maybe an interview. Caleb turned to her with open contempt. You want me to apologize to a waitress? I want you to survive the week. He looked back at the headlines. His own face glared back at him from 20 angles. On one screen, slowed and enlarged, he watched himself kick the bill away from Rowan's hand. He hated the clip, not because it was false, because it was accurate. And accuracy, in the wrong hands, was poison. Fine, he said at last. Build me a stage. Jessica blinked. A stage? A charity event. Big one. Children. Hospitals. Soft lighting. Doctors in white coats. We flood every feed with compassion until that clip looks like an exception, not a pattern. She nodded quickly. There's the Hope Horizon Gala this Saturday. Then it just became useful. Elias said nothing. He only watched Caleb the way a man watches a crack spreading across expensive glass. Caleb turned to him. Lock Aurelius down. No outside access, no movement without my sign-off. It's already done. Good. Then Caleb pointed at the frozen image on the screen, Rowan on her knees, his shoe near the bill. And find her. Jessica hesitated. For legal containment? Caleb looked at her long enough for her to regret the question. For whatever becomes necessary. Across the city, Rowan sat at a scarred wooden desk in a studio apartment so plain it looked accidental. No art on the walls. No soft rugs. No sign of the mind that lived there. To strangers, it was the home of a tired restaurant worker barely surviving Seattle rent. To Rowan, it was a shell, a useful lie. Behind the sliding wardrobe panel, her real world hummed awake in blue light. 3 monitors, secure drives, audio tools, 2 towers she had built by hand. Cables tied in clean lines. Floor-to-ceiling corkboard covered in names, timelines, trial data, shell accounts, and photographs of people who had died after receiving the Aegis valve. 6 confirmed, 9 probable. More buried. Her father's picture stood at the corner of the desk. Not framed, just clipped to the board with a black binder clip. He was laughing in it. Lab coat, half-buttoned. Coffee in hand. A man who had once believed truth moved faster than money. He had been wrong. Rowan replayed the restaurant audio. Caleb's voice came through crisp under the filtered noise. You don't save weak assets. You remove them, like Trial B. She looped it again. And again. Then she pulled the $100 bill from a plastic sleeve and placed it beneath a digital magnifier. The pressure marks were clearer now. Account sequence. Routing fragment. Donation code. Aurelius. A knock hit the wall behind her. 3 short. 2 long. Rowan stood, checked the peephole, then unlocked 3 bolts. A man in a dark courier jacket stepped inside, carrying a flat white bakery box. He was in his 30s, maybe, with sharp cheekbones and tired eyes. No one looking at him on the street would have remembered him 5 seconds later. That was one of the reasons she trusted him. He set the box on the table. I brought pastry, he said. You don't eat sugar. I brought evidence hidden in pastry packaging. That sounds more like you. He almost smiled. Good. You're still mean. This was Noah, not Flux. Not the voice from the sedan. Flux was only a voice, a firewall, a ghost on secure channels. Noah was real. Former investigative researcher. Former something else, too, though he rarely answered direct questions about the years he disappeared. He and Rowan had spent 8 months building paths toward Caleb Sterling from different directions, waiting for one door to open. Last night, one had. Noah opened the bakery box. Inside, beneath a layer of wax paper and 2 untouched croissants, was a printed guest list. Rowan scanned it. Hope Horizon Gala, board members, donors, state health officials, press, venture funds. Then one name circled in black ink, Sophia Vale, Argentum Biocapital. Rowan frowned. Who is this? Quote, she isn't. Rowan looked up. Noah leaned against the counter. Argentum is real. Sophia Vale is not. She appeared online 6 days ago. New interviews. New charitable profile. New social photos. Everything expensive. Everything shallow. It's a fabricated social identity built to attract men who think wealth is more honest when it wears diamonds. And Caleb invited her? He requested her personally this morning. Rowan's eyes sharpened. Because he needs a public investor. Exactly. The stock is bleeding. He needs a miracle by Saturday. She looked back at the name, Sophia Vale. A woman constructed for greed. A mask built to lure a billionaire. Slowly, Rowan understood. No, Noah said, reading her face. Absolutely not. She's perfect. She's dangerous. That's why she works. He pushed off the counter. Rowan, last night was phase 1. Public pressure, exposure. We stay disciplined now. We trace Aurelius. We find records. We build a prosecutable line. He will scrub it all by tomorrow. Quote, then we adapt. Noah. Rowan's voice went flat. I heard him, not on paper, not in theory. I heard him say, trial B. And if you get close too fast, he'll bury the evidence and maybe bury you too. She held his gaze. He already buried my father. Silence sat between them. That was the line neither of them used lightly. Noah looked away first. You think he won't recognize you? Rowan reached for a makeup wipe on the desk and dragged it across one cheek, removing the last trace of restaurant concealer she still had on from the night before. He never saw me, she said. Noah studied her for a long moment. Men like Caleb do notice faces. Only faces they consider equal. He had no answer to that because it was true. Rowan looked again at the guest list. At Sophia Vale. At the clean opening, the universe had placed exactly where she needed one. Not luck. Need. She sat back down and woke the center monitor. Tell Flux to start building the skin. Noah exhaled slowly. You already decided. Yes. You always do that before asking. Yes. Quote. He rubbed a hand over his mouth, then pulled out his phone. If this goes bad, it won't. It can. She looked up at him. Her face was calm now. Too calm. That man made me crawl in front of strangers, she said. He made my father a line item. I am done waiting for justice to grow a spine. Noah nodded once. Not agreement. Acceptance. He moved to the server rack and plugged in a secure drive. Then we do it right. The next 6 hours turned Rowan Bennett into someone else. Not with magic. With work. Hair first, color mapping, wig structure, bone shading plan. Contact lenses, accent range, digital footprint enhancement. The fake investor's life had already begun online, but now it needed depth, school records, archived magazine mentions, gallery donations, flight logs, philanthropic board overlaps, private banking residue. Enough to survive real scrutiny for one evening in a room full of predators. Flux came through the speakers near dusk, voice distorted as always. Your ghost is almost ready. Rowan typed while listening. How almost? Quote, enough to fool socialites, reporters, and narcissists. Maybe not a forensic audit. I only need one night. Noah handed her a tablet. You also need to know this. On screen was a photo of Caleb leaving headquarters 3 hours earlier. 2 men were with him. One was Elias Voss. The other was head of private security. He's looking for you already, Noah said. Rowan looked at the image, then zoomed in on Caleb's face. He looked angry. Good. Angry men made mistakes. But desperate men made invitations. That night, just after 9, Jessica Wynn sent an email from Sterling Hale's executive office to Sophia Vale's private address. It was polished, warm, exclusive. Mr. Sterling would be honored by your presence at Hope Horizon this Saturday. He believes your vision for ethical biotech aligns beautifully with the future. Rowan read it once and laughed. Ethical biotech, Then she opened a blank reply and began to type as someone else. Mr. Sterling's reputation for resilience interests me. I may attend. She hit send. 3 minutes later, Caleb answered personally. I hope you do. Rowan stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then she placed the phone on the desk beside her father's notebook and spoke softly into the room. You invited the wrong woman. Noah heard her, but he did not correct her, because by then they both knew the truth. Caleb Sterling thought he was rebuilding control. What he had really done was open his own front door. On Saturday night, Caleb Sterling stood beneath a chandelier the size of a small car and practiced remorse in a mirror made of glass and money. The Hope Horizon Gala had transformed the Seattle Art Museum into a cathedral of false virtue. White orchids, candlelight, string music, cameras waiting at every entrance. Giant screens displaying smiling children in hospital beds and words like compassion, progress, humanity. Caleb had approved every detail. He wore a midnight black tuxedo, no stain now, no weakness, no sign that 3 days earlier the internet had watched him turn a waitress into a public spectacle. Jessica had done her job well. The room had been built to soften him, to make him look generous, measured, redeemed. It almost worked. Almost. Because every time another guest smiled at him, Caleb looked behind that smile for judgment. Every handshake felt cautious. Every compliment arrived half a second too late. The viral clip had not destroyed him, but it had done something worse. It had made people imagine him clearly. Jessica stepped to his side, tablet in hand, eyes sharp. Press line is controlled. State senator arrived 10 minutes ago. 2 hospital boards are here. Argentum confirmed. Caleb adjusted a cufflink. Sophia Vale? She's on the way. He nodded once, but something in his chest tightened anyway. He hated waiting, especially for people who believed their money gave them permission to make him wait. Any sign of the waitress? He asked. Jessica kept her voice low. No. Head of security said the same thing that morning. No confirmed location. No financial movement under Rowan Bennett's name. No hospital visit. No bus ticket. No camera match at the apartment they had quietly watched since Thursday. It bothered him more than he admitted. Fear was easier to manage when it was visible. A missing woman with motive and nerve was harder. Sir, Jessica said, tonight only works if you stay calm. Caleb looked at the giant screen above the ballroom where the event logo rotated in gold. Hope Horizon. He smiled without warmth. I am calm. Across the city, Rowan Bennett disappeared for the second time in 1 week. The first time had been when Caleb turned her into a waitress. The second was more deliberate. Now she sat in the back of a black sedan while Noah fixed the clasp at her neck with careful, irritated fingers. Stop moving. I'm breathing. Try less. The emerald gown looked like it belonged to a woman who had never checked a grocery bill in her life. The cut was elegant and ruthless. Bare shoulders, clean lines, no glitter, just money sharpened into fabric. Her hair, once pulled into a plain bun at La Ronnerie, now fell in a sculpted blonde sweep just above one shoulder. The color altered her face more than makeup did. The green contact lenses changed her gaze from direct to unreadable. Noah sat back and studied her with professional distrust. Still don't like it, he said. That makes 2 of us. It makes 1 of you. You enjoy dangerous ideas. I enjoy effective ones. The driver kept his eyes on the road. Flux spoke through the concealed speaker near the door, voice warped and metallic. Your credentials are live. Your account trail is holding. Photos are seeded. Press packet is circulating. Sophia Vale exists for the next 9 hours. After that, she dies. Rowan checked the slim phone in her clutch. It displayed a different name, different biometric skin, different encrypted apps. Her real phone stayed locked in a Faraday pouch under the seat. Guest list position. Table 1, Flux said. Caleb personally moved you there. He wants cameras on the introduction. Of course he did. A disgraced billionaire beside a beautiful investor. redemption by association, greed dressed as recovery. Noah handed her a lipstick tube. It was not lipstick. Inside was a compressed flash relay capable of cloning data from a device at close range. Limited use. Small window. High risk. Your earpiece? She touched the pearl stud in her left ear. Connected. The ring? She turned her right hand. The emerald ring looked heavy and old. Beneath the setting sat a pressure switch that would trigger a 2-minute camera loop in a localized system if Flux got line access. Connected. Noah's expression hardened. And if he recognizes you? He won't. And if he does? Rowan looked out the window at the museum steps ahead, glowing white under camera flashes. Then he'll make the same mistake twice. The sedan stopped. A valet opened the door. Instant light, instant noise. Photographers called the fake name before she even stood. Ms. Vale! Ms. Vale, this way! Over here! Are you investing in Sterling Hale? Rowan stepped out slowly, one heel to the pavement, then the other. She had practiced that, too. Not the walk itself, the restraint. Women like Sophia Vale did not rush toward attention. They allowed attention to arrive. She lifted one hand, not waving, simply acknowledging the existence of cameras as if they were weather. The flashes intensified. At the top of the museum steps, Caleb Sterling saw her and forgot every prepared line Jessica had written for him. He had seen beautiful women. He had bought rooms full of them. But this was different. Sophia Vale did not glow. She cut. There was something cool in the way she moved, as if luxury bored her and other people existed mostly as decoration. The old money effect, he thought. Perfect. He started down the steps before she even reached the carpet crest, smiling with just enough warmth to be photographed, not enough to look needy. Ms. Vale, he said, taking her hand. At last. Rowan met his eyes. For a dangerous half-second, time narrowed. This was the man from the restaurant. The man who had made her kneel. The man who had laughed while she crawled. The man who had arranged her father's death and eaten sea bass 3 feet from the truth. And he did not know her. Not a flicker. Not a pause. His hand closed around hers with polished confidence. His thumb brushed once across her knuckles. Possessive already. Mr. Sterling, she said in a softened accent that landed nowhere specific. Your invitations are difficult to ignore. He smiled wider. I hope that's a compliment. It's an observation. He liked that answer. She could tell. Caleb loved resistance when he believed he could own it later. Jessica appeared beside him, all sleek control and public grace. Miss Vale, welcome. We're honored. Rowan gave her a polite glance. Jessica's eyes moved over her face, her dress, her posture measuring. Smart woman, Rowan thought. Not harmless. But Jessica looked away after a moment, satisfied enough. Caleb gestured toward the ballroom doors. Come. I'd like the room to see us arrive together. Rowan let him lead. Inside, the gala opened like a jeweled trap. Crystal reflected candlelight into 1,000 soft blades. Waiters moved in silent lines with silver trays. Donors laughed too loudly. A quartet played near the far wall while giant screens rolled through emotional charity footage designed to weaken wallets and strengthen headlines. Everything smelled expensive. Everything sounded fake. Caleb guided her from cluster to cluster, introducing her like a strategic acquisition. Hospital Board, meet Sophia Vale of Argentum. Senator, you know the Vale family legacy. Arthur from Zurich, Sophia has a fascinating view on biotech expansion. Rowan smiled at the right moments and said almost nothing. That made them lean in. It also gave her time to work. At the second introduction, she brushed the lipstick tube against Caleb's phone when he handed it to a staffer for a photo. 1 second. Enough. Flux's voice murmured through her earpiece. Partial clone acquired. Messages incomplete. Calendar open. Smart home app confirmed. Good. At the third introduction, she learned Elias Voss had not attended. Interesting. At the fourth, she noticed 2 private security men pretending to be art donors. Less interesting. More annoying. When they finally reached table 1, Caleb pulled out her chair himself. A performance. Cameras still circling. He sat beside her. Across from them, A pediatric surgeon and her husband were already deep in nervous gratitude for sterling donations. Rowan listened, storing every detail, while Caleb played benefactor with alarming ease. It made her understand something ugly. He was not pretending kindness. He was sampling it, using it like another luxury object he could wear when useful. The surgeon smiled across the candles. Mr. Sterling's funding helped us expand post-op care in 2 counties. We're grateful. Caleb lowered his gaze modestly. I just believe innovation should serve everyone. Rowan lifted her champagne and watched him over the rim. Serve everyone. Her fingers tightened around the stem so hard she nearly snapped it. Caleb turned toward her. You seem unconvinced. She let a beat pass. Then, I find that men who say everyone usually mean selected people with cameras nearby. The surgeon's husband laughed too quickly. Jessica, passing by, heard the line and almost tripped. Caleb did not get angry. He got interested. There, that was the thing Noah had warned her about. Caleb was not only cruel, he was a collector. Of power, of leverage, of difficult people he thought he could bend. You're direct, he said. Is that rare in your world? It's rare in rooms where I'm paying. Then perhaps I should leave before dessert. Instead of backing away, he laughed. I was told Argentum was cautious. We are. Then why come? Rowan let her eyes drift over the ballroom, the cameras, the polished hypocrisy. I like seeing whether damaged men are more honest than successful ones. That landed, harder than she expected. For the first time that evening, Caleb looked at her without performance. No public smile, no donor softness. Just intelligence checking another intelligence for threat. Dangerous. Then the moment passed. He leaned back. And what's your verdict? She met his gaze calmly, still pending. Dinner moved. Speeches began. A children's choir sang. Caleb took the stage beneath a warm white spotlight and delivered remorse shaped like leadership. He spoke of lessons, of humility, of listening, of responsibility to the vulnerable. The room applauded. Some sincerely, most strategically. Rowan stood with them, clapping lightly, while nausea turned cold inside her. Then Caleb announced a $50 million expansion in pediatric access through Hope Horizon. Bigger applause, more cameras, flash after flash after flash. And then he invited Sophia Vale to join him on stage. Jessica froze near the curtain. This had not been cleared. The room turned. Rowan's pulse jumped once, then flattened. Good. Unscripted moments broke people faster than prepared ones. She walked onto the stage in a wave of light. Caleb held out his hand again. She took it. Giant screens behind them displayed their faces side by side. Ms. Vale, Caleb said into the microphone, represents the kind of global partnership medicine needs. Principled, visionary, fearless. The audience loved those words. They sounded expensive. He turned slightly toward her. Would you care to say a few words? Jessica's expression from the wings said no, absolutely not. Rowan took the microphone anyway. The room settled. This was not part of the plan. Not exactly. But plans were maps. Opportunity was terrain. She looked over the crowd. Doctors, politicians, donors, cameras. The exact type of audience Caleb trusted to admire wealth if it arrived wrapped in confidence. Perfect. Thank you, Rowan said. Her voice carried clean and low. I have no speech. I did not come tonight for speeches. A little laugh moved through the room. She let it fade. I came because I'm interested in people who survive public shame. It tells you what they protect first. The laughter died. Caleb smiled beside her, but his eyes sharpened. Rowan continued. Some protect truth. Some protect patients. Some protect workers. And some... She turned slightly, looking at Caleb now. Some protect the architecture of power so carefully that even kindness becomes a branding exercise. The ballroom went silent. Jessica had stopped breathing. Caleb's hand touched Rowan's lower back, light to cameras, hard enough for warning. But Rowan smiled as if everything was elegant. Then she handed the microphone back. Thank you for the evening, Mr. Sterling. I would still love to hear more about your private collection." The room exhaled all at once, confused whether it had witnessed flirtation, critique, or challenge. Caleb took the mic with a polished laugh. "Ms. Vale appreciates candor," he said. "So do I." Applause returned, thinner now, but Rowan saw it in his face. Not anger, need. He had to win her, which meant she had him. Later, when the orchestra grew louder and the donors drifted toward dessert, Caleb found her alone, near a sculpture gallery washed in blue light. "You embarrassed me," he said softly. Rowan turned, one hand resting on the marble pedestal beside her. "And yet here you are." His jaw moved once. Then he smiled. "You enjoy risk." "No, I enjoy clarity." He stepped closer. "Then let me be clear. Most people in that room need something from me. You don't." I find that refreshing. Quote, "I find most men confusing appetite with uniqueness." That made him laugh again. "There it is," he murmured. "You are nothing like they said." "What did they say?" "That you were cautious, reserved, old money, dull. And now? Now I think you're curious." "About what?" "Whether I'm as dangerous as people pretend." The museum noise seemed to recede. Caleb stood close enough now for her to smell the scotch on his breath. Rowan tilted her head. "Are you?" Instead of answering, he reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, checked the time, then slipped it away. "My car is outside," he said. "Come with me. I'll show you something real." There it was. Not the penthouse yet, not the vault, but the first unguarded invitation. Rowan let a pause stretch just long enough to look expensive. Then she smiled. "Lead the way." Caleb Sterling did not ask twice. When powerful men believed they had found something rare, they moved quickly to own it. 10 minutes later, Rowan sat beside him in the back of a black Mercedes sliding through Seattle's late-night traffic. The museum lights faded behind them. Rain streaked across the windows like silver threads. Caleb loosened his tie and poured himself a small drink from the car's crystal compartment. "You handled that stage better than half the politicians I know," he said. Rowan crossed one leg slowly, watching the city lights pass. "Politicians lie for applause. I prefer curiosity." He studied her. "Curiosity about me?" "About power," she said. That answer pleased him. Rowan could feel it in the subtle shift of his posture. Narcissists loved conversations that circled back to themselves. The car turned toward the waterfront skyline where the Millennium Tower rose above the rest of the city like a blade of glass. Rowan already knew the building well. She had memorized the blueprints 2 nights ago. 80 floors. Private elevator access above level 60. Facial recognition gates. Motion sensors in the residence corridors. And somewhere above all of it, the wine vault, where Caleb Sterling kept his trophies. Flux's voice whispered through her earpiece, almost too quiet to hear. "Your GPS just confirmed the tower." Rowan didn't move her lips. "I know." Across from her, Caleb finished his drink. "You've been very careful tonight," he said. "Careful about what?" "About revealing anything real." "That bothers you?" "It intrigues me." The car slowed under the tower's covered entrance. Security guards stepped forward instantly, opening doors before the driver even stopped completely. They recognized Caleb immediately, but Rowan watched their faces when they saw her. Confusion first, then calculation. Caleb noticed it too. "Miss Vale is with me," he said casually. That was all it took. The doors opened. The lobby of Millennium Tower was less like a building entrance and more like a museum of arrogance. Black marble floors reflected ceiling lights like stars. Silent security scanners stood beside glass walls that overlooked the sleeping city. Caleb walked straight through. Rowan followed. Behind them, the guards exchanged a glance but said nothing. Flux spoke again. "Camera coverage is heavy here. Stay natural." Define natural. For Sophia Vale, arrogant. Rowan almost smiled. They entered the private elevator. Caleb pressed his thumb to a glass panel. The system chirped and the doors sealed. For a moment, they were alone in a rising steel box. Caleb leaned back against the mirrored wall. "You know," he said, Most people would have asked about the scandal by now. I watched the internet for 3 days, Rowan replied. I don't need to ask. And your conclusion? That humiliation videos are rarely about the victim. He tilted his head. Then what are they about? The man who needs to feel taller. Caleb laughed, a real laugh this time. You are dangerous, he said. Rowan's reflection stared back at her from the mirrored wall. Blonde hair, emerald dress, the face of Sophia Vale. You have no idea, she thought. The elevator chimed. 80. The doors opened into a penthouse the size of a gallery. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the entire Seattle skyline. Cold white furniture sat like sculptures across polished black stone floors. Everything in the room whispered money so old it no longer needed to shout. Caleb walked ahead of her with easy ownership. Welcome, he said, to the quiet part of my world. Rowan stepped inside. Her pulse slowed instead of rising. The moment she had chased for 7 years was finally here. Flux's voice returned. I'm inside the building network, 30 seconds before the system notices unusual traffic. Rowan moved slowly toward the living room, pretending to admire a modern sculpture. Where is it? She whispered. Flux answered immediately. Glass chamber on the east wall, climate controlled. That's your vault. Rowan turned her head slightly. There it was, a transparent glass room built into the far side of the penthouse. Inside were rows of wooden wine racks, glowing under soft, amber light. To anyone else, it looked like a collector's dream. To Rowan, it looked like the final lock. Caleb followed her gaze. Beautiful, isn't it? Quote, It's obsessive, Rowan said. He smiled proudly. Great collections always are. He crossed the room and removed a sleek card from his jacket. People think wealth is cars or yachts, he continued. They're wrong. Wealth is access, the ability to hold something no one else can. The glass vault door hissed open as he swiped the card. Cool air drifted out. Rowan stepped inside beside him. The scent of old cork and oak filled the room. Shelves climbed from floor to ceiling, holding bottles older than most governments. Caleb walked to the center pedestal where a wooden crate rested like a relic. 1982 Petrus, he said softly. The last sealed case in North America. Rowan barely glanced at it. Her eyes were searching the upper shelves. Her father's notebook had described it clearly. Red leather, handwritten, hidden where vanity meets ritual. There, top rack, behind 2 tall bottles. The red ledger. Her heartbeat quickened. Caleb didn't notice. He was too busy admiring himself in the reflection of the glass wall. You appreciate rare things, Sophia, he said. I can tell. Rare things interest me, Rowan replied carefully, but flawed things interest me more. Caleb chuckled. You mean scandals. I mean truth. He stepped closer. Truth is overrated. Quote, Before Rowan could respond, Flux spoke urgently. Security cycle reset in 60 seconds. If you're going to move, do it now. Rowan needed Caleb out of the vault. Immediately, she turned slowly toward him, letting the dim amber lights catch the emerald dress. This wine deserves ceremony, she said. It deserves silence. Perhaps, Rowan replied softly, but it also deserves the right glass. Caleb frowned. The decanter is in the kitchen. Then we should fetch it. He hesitated. That was the dangerous second. If he stayed, the window closed. Rowan let her hand trail across the wooden crate, studying the bottle like a collector who had waited her entire life for this moment. You said this was the last one, she murmured. It is. Then we shouldn't rush it. Caleb's ego made the decision for him. Don't touch anything, he said, turning toward the door. I'll get the decanter. The moment he stepped out, Rowan moved. Flux's voice snapped through the earpiece. 40 seconds. Rowan grabbed the small wooden stool beside the rack and climbed quickly. The red ledger was heavier than she expected. She opened it, and the room seemed to tilt. Every page was a confession. Bribes, clinical trial deaths, politicians purchased like equipment. Then, her father's name, Arthur Bennett, Action, eliminate. Method, brake line tampering. Status, resolved. Rowan's vision blurred for a second. Not grief, confirmation. Flux's voice cut through. 20 seconds! Rowan pulled the scanner from her clutch. Rapid photos. Page after page. Evidence, murder logs, offshore accounts, everything. 10 seconds! She shoved the book back into place and jumped down. The stool slid quietly into position. Rowan turned toward the crate of wine just as Caleb's footsteps returned. He stepped back into the vault, holding a crystal decanter, and stopped. His eyes moved slowly around the room, then landed on Rowan. "What were you doing?" he asked. Rowan rested her hand on the wooden crate casually. "Admiring history." His gaze narrowed slightly. For one terrifying moment, Rowan thought he would check the shelf. Instead, Caleb walked closer. "Good," he said quietly. Then his eyes dropped to the clutch resting on the pedestal. Her phone screen had lit up. A notification. Rowan Bennett? Severance processed. Caleb read the name. Once. Twice. Then he looked up. The warmth vanished from his face like someone had turned off a light. "Rowan Bennett?" he said slowly. Rowan didn't breathe. "Who?" Caleb whispered. "Is Rowan Bennett?" Rowan opened her mouth. But it was already too late. Recognition spread across Caleb's face like poison. The waitress. His hand shot forward, grabbing her wrist. "You!" he hissed. And then everything exploded. Caleb's fingers crushed Rowan's wrist so hard pain shot up her arm. "The waitress." He said again, but now the words sounded different. Not amused, not surprised, certain. His face had changed. The charming donor, the polished CEO, the wounded public figure, trying to rebuild his image. All of it was gone. What stood in front of her now was the man from the ledger. The man who wrote, "Eliminate" beside her father's name. Rowan twisted, trying to pull free, but Caleb yanked her closer until they were nearly chest to chest. "You came into my home," he said, each word clipped and deadly. "You lied to my face. Who sent you?" Rowan's fear burned away almost instantly. He knew. Good. No more masks. "No one sent me," she said. "I came for the truth." Caleb laughed once, low and vicious. "The truth?" His grip tightened. "You came for revenge." Yes. The word hit him harder than denial would have. For one brief second, Caleb actually looked offended, as if revenge were something only men like him had the right to pursue. He shoved her backward. Rowan slammed into the wine rack. Bottles rattled in their cradles. One slid, tipped, then crashed to the floor, exploding in dark red across the white stone like fresh blood. Caleb didn't even look down. "Did you touch anything?" he asked. Rowan straightened slowly, rubbing her wrist. "You mean besides your ego?" His jaw flexed. Even now, even trapped in a glass room 80 floors above the city, she saw it clearly. Caleb still thought control was one sentence away, one threat, one shove, one reminder of power. He took a step toward her. "Answer me." Rowan held his stare. Yes. That stopped him. Not because he was shocked, because he was recalculating. "What did you take?" "Enough." He looked past her toward the shelves, toward the top rack where the red ledger sat in perfect place, hiding in plain sight. Then back to her clutch, then to her face. "How much do you know?" Rowan's voice went cold. "I know Trial B killed people. I know you paid families for silence. I know you bribed regulators. I know Aurelius washed the money. And I know my father did not die in an accident." The last sentence landed like a blade. Caleb's expression hardened into something ugly and flat. "Your father," he said. "Arthur Bennett." Rowan swallowed once. "Say his name again." He smiled then. A terrible smile. Small, private, cruel. "Arthur Bennett," he repeated. "Brilliant chemist, weak spine." The words moved through her like fire. She wanted to lunge at him, wanted to smash the decanter into his teeth, wanted to make him bleed right there among the bottles he loved more than human beings. Instead, she held still, because rage was what he expected, and tonight was not built for rage. It was built for ending him. Caleb set the crystal decanter down with deliberate care. Then he reached behind him and slapped his palm against the interior lock panel. A sharp mechanical click echoed through the vault. The glass door sealed. Flux's voice burst into Rowan's ear. "Manual lockdown. I lost remote access to the door." Caleb heard nothing. He only kept staring at Rowan. "We're alone now," he said. He moved toward the center table and picked up the heavy corkscrew opener lying beside the crate. Not a knife. Not exactly. But sharp enough. Solid enough. "Do you know what I hate most about people like you?" he asked. "People like me? The invisible ones who decide they are morally superior because they suffer in public." He rolled the metal opener once in his hand. "You think pain makes you righteous? It doesn't. It just makes you noisy." Quote. Rowan took one slow step backward. "Funny," she said. "I was about to say the same thing about billionaires." He lunged. She moved just in time. The opener slashed past her shoulder and struck the rack behind her with a hard crack. A bottle fell and shattered near her feet. Wine sprayed over the hem of her dress. Rowan grabbed the nearest thing she could reach, a wooden presentation box, and hurled it into his chest. It bought her 2 seconds. No more. Caleb kicked it aside and came at her again, faster now, done pretending to be civilized. "This could have ended quietly," he snarled. "No," Rowan shot back. "It couldn't." She ducked as he swung again. The metal opener scraped the glass wall with a screech that made her teeth ache. She shoved a rack between them and ran around the center pedestal, using the narrow aisles to force him to slow down. Flux's voice came sharp through the earpiece. "I'm back in the penthouse grid. I can't open the vault yet. I need time." "You have seconds," Rowan whispered. Caleb heard the murmur. He stopped. His eyes narrowed. "You're not alone." Quote. He looked at her ear. Then he smiled. "Ah!" That one sound was worse than shouting. He understood enough now. "There's someone listening," he said. "Someone helping you." He glanced up toward the corners of the vault, toward the tiny security cameras embedded above the racks. "How long have you been planning this?" Quote. "Longer than you deserve." He laughed again, but there was strain in it now. He was scared. Not of Rowan, of exposure, of loss, of becoming small. He rushed her once more. Rowan grabbed a bottle by the neck and smashed it against the edge of the table. Glass burst in her hand. She pointed the jagged remains at him. "Stay back." He actually did. For half a second. Then he looked at the broken bottle in her hand and began to clap. Slow, mocking, soft. "There you are," he said. Not the heiress, not the waitress, just the grieving daughter pretending she's a threat. Rowan's hand shook once, then steadied. "Pretending." He tilted his head. "You came here thinking evidence would save you, but evidence belongs to whoever controls the story." He spread one hand as if lecturing in a boardroom. "I built systems, Rowan. I own narratives, judges, media, experts. By tomorrow you'll be a mentally unstable woman who stalked me under a fake identity, broke into my home, and attacked me with a bottle." He tapped his chest with one finger. "And I'll be the survivor." Then he stepped closer, voice dropping low. "Just like your father wasn't a whistleblower in the end. He was a depressed man in a damaged car." That did it. Rowan moved. Not wildly, not blindly, fast. She feinted left and slashed right. The broken glass cut across Caleb's forearm. He cursed and stumbled back, more shocked than hurt. Blood darkened his shirt cuff. For the first time in his life, someone he considered beneath him had marked him. He looked at the blood, then at her, and something in him snapped. He grabbed a full bottle from the rack and hurled it. Rowan ducked. It shattered against the glass wall behind her. Another came immediately after. Then another. He was not fighting to escape now. He was trying to obliterate the room itself. Wine burst everywhere. Splinters of glass skidded across the floor. The climate-controlled vault started to smell less like wealth and more like wreckage. "Flux," Rowan said through clenched teeth, backing toward the far wall. "Now. Almost there. That's not an answer. I need 10 more seconds." Caleb heard enough to understand the rhythm, if not the words. He rushed forward through the broken glass, grabbed Rowan by the throat, and slammed her against the smart glass wall of the vault. Her breath vanished. Pain flashed white behind her eyes. His face was inches from hers. "I should have checked your eyes," he said. The sentence froze her, because those were the words she had thought in the alley after the restaurant. As if he had somehow reached into her memory and stolen them. He squeezed harder. "You know what your father did wrong." Rowan clawed at his wrist. He believed data mattered more than power. Her vision blurred. He believed being right would protect him. Spots burst across her sight. "And now," Caleb whispered, "you are making the same mistake." Quote. Then he said the one thing he should never have said. "I had his brakes cut because he forgot who he was dealing with." The words hit the vault like thunder. Rowan stopped fighting for one fraction of a second, not from fear. From certainty. There it was. Clean, direct, unmistakable. Confession. She forced air through her crushed throat and whispered one word: flux. The world changed. Every screen in the penthouse came alive at once. The smart glass wall behind Rowan flashed white, then turned into a giant live display. The hidden cameras inside the vault activated. The lights dimmed and shifted. Caleb jerked his head toward the sudden glare. On the glass behind him appeared a streaming window. Live now. Justice for Arthur. Viewers were climbing so fast the number blurred. 50,000, 90,000, 200,000. The audio played back through the vault speakers, perfectly clear. "I had his brakes cut because he forgot who he was dealing with." Caleb's hand fell from Rowan's throat. He turned slowly toward the screen. "No," the replay continued. "Trial B killed people. I know my father did not die in an accident. I had his brakes cut." "No," Caleb said again, louder now. Along the right side of the display, comments flooded upward too fast to read. "Record this. He said it. Call the FBI murderer. He admitted it. It's over." Flux's voice came calm through Rowan's ear. "Every security feed in the penthouse is live. Every backup is mirrored. Every major platform is carrying it." Caleb backed away from the screen as if distance could erase it. "You deepfake this," he said, but even he did not believe the words. "You manipulated." Then the feed switched. Now it showed him in real time, blood on his sleeve. Broken bottle in Rowan's hand. Wine everywhere. His face twisted with panic. He looked monstrous, small, cornered. Exactly what he really was. Rowan pushed herself off the glass wall, coughing, breathing fire into her lungs. "You wanted control of the story," she rasped. "Now everyone gets to hear it from you." Quote, Caleb stared at the screen, then at the ceiling corners, finally seeing the cameras he had installed to protect his precious collection, seeing them for what they had become. Witnesses. He spun toward Rowan with pure hatred. "You ruined me!" She stepped toward him through the broken glass. "No," she said. "I just stopped protecting you." And then the sound came, faint at first, then rising. Sirens, many of them, from the street below, from every direction. Caleb heard them too. The color drained from his face. He looked toward the city, toward the windows beyond the vault, where red and blue lights were already beginning to flicker against the night. He took one step backward, then another, until the great Caleb Sterling, king of clean images and dirty money, hit the rack behind him and had nowhere left to go. Rowan looked at him through the shattered room he had built for himself. For the first time, he looked exactly like what he was. Not powerful, not visionary, not untouchable. Just caught. The sirens grew louder. Not one patrol car, not two, an entire storm of them. Red and blue lights climbed the glass walls of the Millennium Tower, like fire rising up a mirror. Helicopter blades began to beat the air above the building, heavy and relentless. Inside the vault, Caleb Sterling stood frozen. For a man who had spent his life controlling every room he entered, the moment felt unreal. Like gravity had shifted and he had forgotten how to stand. On the smart glass wall, the live stream counter kept climbing. 1, 200,000 viewers. 1. 450,000. 2 million. The comments were a river of fury. He said it. Call the FBI, he confessed. Justice for Arthur. Rowan leaned against the edge of the marble tasting table, catching her breath. Her throat still burned where Caleb's fingers had crushed it. Blood from the broken glass bottle dripped slowly down her hand. But she was smiling. Not with triumph, with release. 7 years of silence had just cracked open. Caleb looked from the screen to Rowan. "You stupid woman," he whispered. The words came out hollow now. "You think this ends me?" Rowan tilted her head slightly. "I don't think anything." Quote. She nodded toward the screen. "I just let you talk." Caleb's breathing became shallow. He grabbed the decanter from the pedestal and hurled it across the room. Crystal shattered against the glass wall, but the live stream continued, uninterrupted. Nothing he broke would stop it now. Outside the vault, heavy footsteps thundered through the penthouse. Then, boom, the reinforced front door of the apartment exploded inward. "Federal agents!" The shout echoed through the marble halls. "Don't move!" Caleb staggered back as the vault door slid open under emergency override. Armed agents flooded the room, rifles raised, lights blazing. One agent stepped forward. "Caleb Sterling, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, corporate fraud, racketeering, and obstruction of justice." For a moment, Caleb didn't move. Then something inside him finally broke. He laughed. A broken, hysterical sound. "Do you know who I am?" he shouted. The lead agent didn't blink. "Yes," she said calmly. "That's why we brought extra cuffs." 2 agents grabbed Caleb's arms. He struggled once, not hard, just enough to feel like the old Caleb for half a second longer. Then the cuffs snapped shut. The livestream chat exploded again. "Arrested, he's done. This is history." Rowan watched silently as they pulled him toward the door. At the threshold, Caleb twisted his head back to look at her. The arrogance was gone now. Only rage remained. "You destroyed everything," he said. Rowan met his gaze without blinking. "No," she said quietly, "you did." They dragged him out. The vault fell silent. Broken glass covered the floor like frozen rain. Red wine pooled between the marble tiles. The air smelled like cork, metal, and the end of an empire. Flux's voice came softly through Rowan's earpiece. "Feed is still running. 2 million viewers and climbing." "End it," Rowan said. "You sure?" Quote. "Yes." The live stream cut to black. Outside the tower, chaos had taken over the streets. News vans crowded the sidewalks. Cameras pointed upward toward the penthouse windows. Rowan stepped out of the building wrapped in a silver emergency blanket an EMT had handed her. The night air felt colder now, but lighter. Police lights painted the pavement red and blue as agents escorted Caleb Sterling down the front steps. He looked smaller somehow, without the stage lights, without the expensive suits, without the illusion. Just another man in handcuffs trying not to look at the crowd screaming his name. Rowan stood quietly at the edge of the barricade. He never saw her. Or maybe he did, and refused to look. The car door slammed. The convoy pulled away. And with it went the most powerful man in Seattle. The collapse of Caleb Sterling happened faster than anyone expected. Within 24 hours, Sterling Hale Pharmaceuticals lost 70% of its value. Within 48 hours, the board of directors removed Caleb permanently. Within a week, federal prosecutors seized the company headquarters and froze every account tied to the Aurelius network. The Red Ledger, recovered from the vault by investigators, turned out to be worse than anyone imagined. Politicians, regulators, executives, doctors. The book was a map of corruption stretching across 3 continents. Trial B alone revealed 17 deaths connected to the faulty Aegis valve. Families who had once signed silent settlements now stood in front of cameras telling their stories. For the first time, people understood how many lives had been buried to protect one man's ambition. 3 months later, the trial began. The courtroom overflowed every day. Journalists filled the gallery. Victims, families lined the back rows. Outside, protesters carried signs that read, "People are not test data. Justice for Arthur." Rowan Bennett took the stand on the 4th day. She wore a simple gray suit. No disguises, No fake names. Just Rowan. The prosecutor asked the first question. Ms. Bennett, why did you risk your life confronting Caleb Sterling? Rowan looked at the jury, then at Caleb. He sat at the defense table between two lawyers who cost more per hour than she had earned in a year as a waitress. But he did not look like a king anymore. He looked like a man who had run out of doors. Rowan answered simply, because he believed people like my father were disposable. The courtroom was silent, she continued. He believed if you had enough money, the truth would eventually get tired and go away. The prosecutor nodded. And did it? Quote. Rowan shook her head. No. 4 hours later, the jury returned, guilty on every major charge. The judge leaned forward as he delivered the sentence. Caleb Sterling, your crimes demonstrate a level of calculated cruelty rarely seen in this court. Quote. You used power not to save lives, but to gamble with them. The gavel came down. I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Caleb did not react. He just stared at the floor. 6 months later, the media storm had faded. Rowan stood in a quiet cemetery beneath a wide blue sky. A small granite headstone sat beneath a maple tree. Arthur Bennett, beloved father. Truth matters. She brushed a few leaves from the stone. I finished it, she whispered. The wind rustled through the branches above her. They released the Aegis valve patent into public domain. Hospitals can manufacture it now without Sterling's pricing. She smiled faintly. That's what you wanted. Her phone buzzed. A message from Noah. Sterling appeal denied. Rowan slipped the phone back into her pocket. The weight that had lived in her chest for 7 years was finally gone. She stood, brushing the dust from her knees, the same motion she had made in the restaurant when Caleb forced her to crawl for $100. Back then, it had felt like humiliation. Now it felt like history. She looked once more at the grave. Power, she said quietly, doesn't belong to the loudest man in the room. She turned toward the sunlight. It belongs to the one person he never thought to notice. And with that, Rowan Bennett walked away from the past.